The first civilizations. The term progress fundamentally implies the degree of improvement at which individuals live respectively calmly in networks. Antiquated civilization alludes explicitly to the primary settled and stable networks that turned into the reason for later states, countries, and realms. The investigation of antiquated human progress is worried about the earliest portions of the a lot more extensive subject called Old History. The range of Old History started with the development of expounding on 3100 BC and went on for over 35 centuries. Humanity existed well before the composed word, however, setting up made the keeping of a verifiable account conceivable. The primary old social orders emerged in Mesopotamia and Egypt in the Center East, in the Indus Valley locale of what are currently Pakistan and India, in the Huanghe, Yellow Waterway, Valley of China, on the island of Crete in the Aegean Ocean, and in Focal America. This multitude of human advancements shared specific highlights. Practically speaking, they assembled urban communities and designed types of composing. They figured out how to make ceramics and use metals. They tamed creatures, and they made genuinely complex social designs with class frameworks. Aside from set-up accounts and cut engravings, the information about old people groups is gotten from crafted by archaeologists. The vast majority of the critical archaeological discoveries have been made in the beyond 200 years. The Sumerian culture of Mesopotamia was found during the 1890s, and probably the main archaeological dives in China were made after the last part of the 1970s. Agriculture, the basis of civilization. The single, conclusive variable that made it workable for humanity to get comfortable long-lasting networks was agribusiness. A defining moment in mankind's set of experiences, the creation of cultivating and the huge changes it achieved have been known as the farming upset. In the wake of cultivating was created in the Center East around 6500 BC, individuals living in clans or nuclear families didn't need to be progressing ceaselessly looking for food or grouping their creatures. When individuals had some control over the development of food and be guaranteed of a dependable yearly inventory of it, their lives changed totally. Individuals started to establish extremely durable networks in prolific waterway valleys. They settled around streams for various reasons. Streams were a significant wellspring of new water for drinking. They could be utilized for transportation. Pilgrims likewise figured out how to utilize the water supply to inundate the land for cultivating. Stationary settlement, or being gotten comfortable one spot, made it conceivable to tame creatures to give different well springs of food and apparel. Cultivating was for sure a progressive revelation. It not just made settlements conceivable and at last the structure of urban communities, however it likewise made accessible a dependable food supply. With more food accessible, more individuals could be taken care of. Populaces consequently expanded. The developing number of individuals accessible for additional sorts of work prompted the advancement of additional perplexing social designs. With a food excess, a local area could uphold different specialists who were not ranchers. The horticultural transformation in this way brought about a division of work, for certain individuals cultivating, while others worked at different specialties, like making ceramics, fabric, or devices. Craftspeople exchanged the products they made to ranchers for food. Cultivating the world over has consistently depended upon a reliable water supply. For the earliest social orders this implied waterways and streams or standard precipitation. The primary extraordinary civic establishments grew up along streams. Later people group had the option to foster by exploiting the blustery seasons. Every one of the antiquated human advancements presumably created similarly, despite territorial and climatic contrasts. As towns developed, the amassing of additional various and significant merchandise became conceivable. Heavier stoneware supplanted creature skin gourds as holders for food and fluids. Material could be woven from fleece and flax. Extremely durable designs made of wood, block, and stone could be fabricated. The study of arithmetic was an early outgrowth of horticulture. Individuals concentrated on the developments of the moon, sun, and planets to compute seasons. In this manner they made the principal schedules. with a schedule working out the appearance of each developing season was conceivable. Estimation of land regions was fundamental if property somehow happened to be partitioned precisely. Estimations of sums, for instance, of seeds or grains, was likewise a figure cultivating and housekeeping. Later came proportions of significant worth as ware and cash trade became normal. The utilization of different approaches to estimating drove normally to record keeping, and for this some type of composing was important. The earliest developments all appear to have utilized picture composing, pictures addressing the two sounds and protests to the peruser. The most popular of the old composing frameworks is likely Egyptian hieroglyphics, a term signifying consecrated carvings, since a significant number of the earliest compositions were recorded on stone. Every one of the significant old civilizations in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China arose in the 4000 years BC. History specialists actually banter over which one arose first. It might well have been in the center east, in a space called the Fruitful Sickle. This region extends from the Nile waterway in Egypt toward the north along the shore of the verifiable locale of Palestine, then toward the east into Asia to incorporate Mesopotamia. In this space individuals settled along the river banks and rehearsed field agribusiness. This sort of cultivating relied upon the proliferation of seed, typically from grain crops. Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia, from a Greek expression signifying between waterways, lies between the Tigris and Euphrates streams, a locale that is today important for Iraq. By around 5000 BC, little clans of ranchers had advanced toward the waterway valleys. On the floodplains they raised wheat, grain, and peas. They sliced through the riverbanks so that water for their harvests could stream to bring down lying soil. These early water system frameworks were all the more completely evolved by the Sumerians in Mesopotamia. They depleted swamps and dug trenches, embankments, and trenches. The requirement for collaboration on these enormous water system projects prompted the development of government and regulation. The Sumerians are in this way credited with shaping the earliest of the antiquated human advancements. The place that is known for the Sumerians was called Sumer, Shinar in the Good Book. Their starting points are covered before. They were not Semites, as the majority of the people groups of the locale. The Sumerians communicated in a language irrelevant to other known tongues. They might have come to southern Mesopotamia from Persia before 4000 BC. Sumerian towns and urban areas included Eridu, Nippur, Lagash, Kish, and Ur. The urban areas contrasted from crude cultivating settlements. They were not made out of family-possessed cultivates, however were ringed by enormous plots of land. These lots were believed to be possessed by a nearby god. A cleric coordinated work gatherings of ranchers to tend the land. The ranchers gave grain, beans, wheat, olives, grapes, and flax for the local area. These early urban communities, which existed by 3500 BC, were called sanctuary towns since they were worked around the sanctuary of the neighborhood god. The sanctuaries were at last developed on towers called ziggurats, heavenly mountains. The ziggurats had inclines or flights of stairs ending up around the outside. Public structures and commercial centers were worked around these hallowed places. The sanctuary towns developed into city-states, which are viewed as the premise of the main genuine civic establishments. At the point when just the most essential types of transportation and correspondence were accessible, the city-state was the most manageable kind of human settlement. City-states were controlled by pioneers called ensis. They were most likely approved to control the neighborhood water system frameworks. The food excess given by the ranchers upheld these pioneers as well as ministers, specialists, experts, and others. The Sumerians added to the improvement of metalworking, wheeled trucks, and potter's wheels. They might have created the main type of composing. They engraved pictures on earth tablets in a type of composing known as cuneiform, signifying wedge-molded. The tablets were utilized to keep the records of the sanctuary food storage facilities. By around 2500 BC these image signs were being refined into a letter set. The Sumerians fostered the principal schedule, which they acclimated to the periods of the moon. The lunar schedule was taken on by the Semites, Egyptians, and Greeks. Exchange expanded between Sumerian urban communities and among Sumer and other, more far-off districts. This prompted the development of a dealer class. The Sumerians coordinated an intricate folklore. It depended on the connections among the different nearby lords of the sanctuary towns. In Sumerian religion, the main divine beings were viewed as human types of normal powers: sky, sun, earth, water, and tempest. Every one of these divine beings was initially connected with a specific city. The divine beings were venerated in the extraordinary sanctuaries as well as in little sanctums in family homes. Fighting between urban areas in the long run prompted the ascent of lords, called lugals, whose power supplanted that of city-state rulers. Sumer turned into a more brought-together state, with a typical culture and an incorporated government. This prompted the foundation of an organization and a military. By 2375 BC, the greater part of Sumer was joined under one lord, Lugald Sagazi of Umma. Ancient Egypt. Egyptian ranchers had gotten comfortable the long and tight valley of the Nile stream by 5000 BC. In somewhere around 2000 years, Egyptians had concocted composition and constructed gigantic water system works. They had laid out a culture that gave the pyramids and other radiant landmarks to any kind of future family. The antiquated Egyptians relied vigorously upon the Nile waterway. The stream made a desert garden in the encompassing desert, giving water to drinking and for cultivating. Every year, the stream rose, overwhelmed, and fell. Its flooding stored residue along the riverbank, making the land great for cultivating. The ripeness of the land and the overall consistency of the Nile's flooding guaranteed ranchers a high return from a solitary yearly yield. Ultimately, the Egyptians could store huge excesses of grain, to exchange and to keep for possible later use in the event of yield disappointments. Excess harvests would shape the main premise of antiquated Egypt's extraordinary abundance. The Nile was likewise the general public's most significant transportation course. The majority of the antiquated Egyptians lived in the Nile Valley and Delta, and virtually totally were ranchers. The crude cultivating settlements of Egypt were worried about the raising of grains, products of the soil, and creatures. These settlements gradually gave way to bigger groupings of individuals. Likely the need to control the Nile floodwaters through dams and channels in the end prompted the ascent of government in the locale. Toward the finish of the ancient time frame before around 2925 BC, Egypt was isolated into two realms. Lower Egypt had its capital at Buto, while Upper Egypt was focused at Hierakonpolis. In this period voyagers acquired thoughts from Sumer, including the ideas of composing and the stoneware wheel. Egyptian development started with the unification in the 3000 years BC of the upper and lower districts by Lord Menes. He laid out another capital at Memphis. In this time the Egyptians fostered the initial 365-day schedule. They developed the furrow and utilized copper. They created hieroglyphic composition and started to work with stone. Exchange and investigation prospered. The Egyptians were controlled by rulers known as pharaohs who professed to be slipped from the god Horus. These lords, upheld by a religious class, lived in magnificence, and they made sure that after their demises they would be covered in quality. The burial chambers worked for them were planned as storage facilities to hold everything that the lords would require in the hereafter. The earliest illustrious burial chambers foreshadowed the later extraordinary landmarks, the pyramids. By around 2700 BC the main pyramid was worked, in Saqqara. The three extraordinary pyramids of Giza actually remaining close to Cairo were implicit the 26th and 25th hundreds of years BC. Early Egyptian history is separated into three significant periods: the Old Realm, around 2575 around 2130 BC, the Center Realm, 1938 around 1630 BC, and the New Realm, around 1539 to 1075 BC. By the beginning of the Old Realm, the attributes of Egyptian civilization had proactively been immovably settled. The periods not represented by the dates are accepted to be seasons of decline known as the Middle Periods. Ancient India. The valley of the Indus stream is viewed as the origin of Indian progress. Situated on the Indian subcontinent, to a great extent in what is currently Pakistan, the Indus Valley progress was not found by archaeologists until 1924. The antiquated history of this locale is clouded by legend. It shows up, in any case, that by 4000 BC crude ranchers were raising vegetables, grains, and animals along the riverbank. By 2700 BC two significant urban areas, Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, and various more modest towns had arisen. There is some proof that Mesopotamian dealers contacted the early individuals of the Indus Valley by cruising there from Sumer. The Indus Valley individuals shared a few turns of events like complex water system and waste frameworks and the craft of composing with individuals of Sumer. Nonetheless, individuals of the Indus Valley likewise fostered a remarkable social style of their own. What little is known about the Indus human advancement recommends that it had huge urban areas that were all around spread out and very much braced. There were public structures, royal residences, showers, and enormous silos to hold horticultural produce. The numerous relics and fine arts found by archaeologists demonstrate that the inhabitants of the Indus had arrived at a genuinely elevated degree of culture before their progress was obliterated. The Vedic public, who were wanderers from the Eurasian steppes, moved to the Indus Valley starting around 1500 BC. They presented a station framework, which continues to the current day. The position framework isolates all individuals into social classes with contrasting privileges and commitments. It was a conventional articulation of the reliant work division found in all civic establishments. By the 6th century BC something like 16 states had been laid out on the Indian subcontinent. Ancient Crete. By around 2500 BC a human progress had arisen on the island of Crete in the Aegean Ocean. Unearthings in 1900 at the site of Knossos uncovered the presence of a culture named by archaeologists as Minoan after a legendary ruler, Minos. Minoans most likely gotten comfortable Crete before 3000 BC. There is proof of outside impact in Crete. Clearly Egyptian merchants arrived at the Aegean Ocean not long after the Minoans did. By the by, Minoan human advancement fostered its own novel highlights. By around 2000 BC, extraordinary urban areas with intricate and sumptuous castles were assembled, and ocean exchange was thriving. The Minoans had an image-composing framework, as had other old people groups. The Minoan religion appears to have fixated on a mother goddess and on the figures of the bull and the snake. The Minoans are known for their wonderful and bright wall artworks and their fine stoneware. Around 1400 BC Minoan human advancement started to decline. The end was hurried by attacks from Central Area Greece. Ancient China. The Chinese had gotten comfortable the Huanghe, or Yellow Stream, valley of northern China by 3000 BC. By then they had ceramics, wheels, homesteads, and silk. However they had not yet found composition or the purposes of metals. The Shang tradition, 1600, 1046 BC, is the principal reported period of Old China. The exceptionally evolved order comprised of a ruler, aristocrats, normal people, and slaves. The capital city was Anyang, in what is presently North Henan territory. A few researchers have proposed that voyagers from Mesopotamia and from Southeast Asia carried rural techniques to China, which invigorated the development of Old Chinese progress. The Shang people groups were known for their utilization of jade, bronze, horse-drawn chariots, precursor love, and profoundly coordinated armed forces. Like other antiquated people groups, the Chinese created interesting qualities. Their type of composing, likely created by 2000 BC, was a complicated framework that pre-owned characters that represented words or portions of words. Such early types of Chinese became known through the disclosure by archaeologists of prophet bones, which were bones with works recorded on them. They were utilized for fortune-telling and record-keeping in antiquated China. The Zhou tradition, 1046 to 256 BC, saw the full blossoming of old progress in China. During this period the domain was brought together, a working class emerged, and iron was presented. The savvy Confucius, 551 to 479 BC, fostered the set of principles that ruled Chinese idea and culture for the following 25 centuries. Ancient Meso-America and South America. Meso-America is the term used to portray the old settlements of Mexico and Focal America. The earliest intricate development realized in the Americas is that of the Olmec of Focal Mexico. The Olmec lived in the swamps of what are presently Veracruz and Tabasco states from around 1200 BC. They passed on curios going from little jade carvings to colossal landmarks like the volcanic stone sculptures at San Lorenzo. These landmarks propose the presence of a coordinated and various society with pioneers who could order crafted by craftsmen and workers. Among the numerous other complex pre-Columbian human advancements in Focal and South America were the Chavin, Nazca, Moche, and Inca of Peru, the Chibcha and Tarana of Colombia, the Marajora and Tapajos of Brazil, the Maya of the Yucatan Promontory, and the Aztec of Mexico. See additionally Native Americans, Center Native Americans, Focal American and Northern Andean Indians, Focal Andean Indians, Rainforest Indians, South American Migrant Indians. Just four antiquated civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China, gave the premise to consistent social advancements in a similar area. After the Minoan culture on Crete was obliterated, its social customs and legends passed into the existence of Central Area Greece. With respect to Mesoamerica and South America, their societies were lowered by the Spanish victors of the 1600 years.